Chapter 1. The Man on the Plane. They called me Reed Jackson on the boarding pass, but every breath I took reminded me that Jack Reeve hadn't really died. He'd just been sleeping under layers of drywall, silence, and domestic lies. Now, with a duffel bag by my feet and a burner phone in my jacket, I sat somewhere over the Atlantic with blood on my mind and questions too heavy for the cabin pressure. I hadn't slept in 20 hours, and I didn't plan to. Not until I knew exactly who Mara was, what Echo wanted, and how deep this reactivation order really ran. The seat beside me was empty, just like the life I left behind. A life dismantled not by bullets, but by secrets and silence. Chapter 2. Arrival Protocol. We landed in Kuwait under cover of dusk. The heat didn't just wrap around you, it invaded you. I passed through the private terminal with no passport check, guided by a man in mirrored sunglasses who didn't say a word. He handed me a keycard and a burner wrapped in foil, then pointed toward a matte black SUV. I knew the play. I'd been part of these protocols. I designed some of them. But now I was the one being moved like a piece on the board, and I didn't like it. The safe house was a warehouse at the edge of the city, dressed up with false walls, clean linens, and the kind of minimalist furniture that screamed government budget. I stripped, checked the water lines, wired the door, then finally sat down. The phone buzzed. One word. Debrief. 0400. Chapter 3. Ghosts in the Room. The debrief didn't happen in a bunker or a boardroom. It happened in a rented office above a closed electronics shop. 4 men waited, none of whom I recognized. All wore the same expression. Controlled contempt. They didn't speak at first. Just watched me like I was the last grenade in a room full of matches. Then the lead suit spoke. No name, just a question. No. What do you remember about Caracas? My blood froze. Caracas wasn't on any file I ever read, because it wasn't supposed to exist. It was the mission that changed everything. The one that cost 3 teammates and gave me the migraines I still get when I smell gasoline. Enough, I said. His lips curled slightly. Then you know why you're back. Chapter 4. The Mara Directive. They didn't show me a photo, just a silhouette. Mara wasn't just a name, it was a designation. Covert infiltrator, multi-domain operative, 0 attachments, no mercy. Her last known target died in Berlin. Heart attack officially. But I'd seen the body. Pressure point trauma. The kind of kill you only learn after 1,000 hours in hell. She's tracking former Echo assets, the lead suit said. You're on her list. I leaned forward. Then why am I here? His answer? Because you're bait. For a second I didn't breathe. They weren't activating me to stop her. They were offering me up, in hopes she'd make contact. Then what? They didn't say. Because they didn't have to. Echo didn't clean up messes. Echo erased them. Chapter 5. Contact Trace. They gave me a 48-hour tail window. Walk the city, they said. Let her see you. I knew what they were really saying. Don't run. The first day I wandered the souks, let her watch me. I could feel the eyes, not just hers, but Echo's. I walked past mirrors and storefronts, caught glints of light that didn't match the sun. I touched a scar behind my left ear, one I thought had faded, and wondered if it was still broadcasting something. The second day, I waited. In a cafe, then a rooftop bar. Then the mosque steps at midnight. Nothing. Until the moment I reached the hotel lobby. My burner buzzed. Unknown number. 1 word. Turn. Chapter 6. The Woman in White. I turned. Slowly. Just like the message told me to. She stood near the marble column of the lobby. A white scarf loose around her shoulders. Oversized sunglasses covering most of her face. But even in that disguise, I felt it. Stillness. Precision. Like the world adjusted itself to accommodate her presence. I walked toward her, each step calibrated, watching her body language. No tension, no weapon visible. But her stance? Combat tested. She tilted her head slightly. Jack. Her voice wasn't cold. That's what threw me. It wasn't robotic or hollow. It was curious. I stopped 3 feet away. Mara? She smiled. Not confirmation, not denial. Walk with me, she said. And just like that, I followed the woman whose name was whispered in dossiers meant to be burned. Chapter 7. The Park with No Name. We walked through a palm-lined stretch near the waterfront. The sun was dying behind the skyline. She moved like someone who didn't fear bullets. I kept my right hand loose, within striking distance of my thigh holster. You're not Echo anymore, she said finally. I nodded. Neither are you if you're talking to me. She stopped near a bench. They didn't bring you back to debrief, she said. They brought you back to unlock something, and they think I'll be the key. I didn't respond. I let the silence do the work. Eventually, she continued. There's a file buried in your brain. Caracas wasn't just a blackout op. It was a neuromod test. You were part of it. You volunteered. My jaw clenched. I didn't remember volunteering for anything. Chapter 8. The Archive Below the Skin. Mara didn't speak again until we reached a parking garage. Her car was matte silver, no plates. Inside, the AC was cold enough to bite. She handed me a tablet. On it, brain scans. Mine. They ran neural overlays on you in 2013, she said. It wasn't just about PTSD suppression. They tried to reprogram memory triggers, hide operational data behind emotional trauma. I stared at the scans, patterns spiraling out from my amygdala. Mara tapped the screen. This cluster? That's not organic. That's engineered suppression. I blinked. I thought the gaps in my memory were the cost of war, of violence. But they were designed. My rage wasn't a scar. It was a lock. And someone wanted the key. Chapter 9. A Dead Man's Voice. Later that night, I played the voice file she handed me. A recording, buried in the metadata of the scans. It was of Captain Monroe, my former Echo commander, the man who supposedly died in a training explosion 9 years ago. But this was dated last month. His voice was raspy, slower, but unmistakable. If you're hearing this, Jack, they're already burning the list. Don't let them erase you. Don't let them turn the fire inward. Mara knows where the backup is. Backup, list, fire. I didn't know what he meant, not fully. But suddenly, I knew one thing. Monroe was alive. Or he had been, until very recently. And that meant nothing Echo had told me could be trusted. Chapter 10. Beneath the Embassy. The coordinates Mara gave me led to a tunnel beneath the old U.S. Cultural Embassy, abandoned since 2015. We entered at Oro 300. Tight corridor. Smell of mildew and rust. A security panel lit when Mara pressed her palm against it. Biometric crossover, she said. They think I'm someone else. The steel door hissed open. Inside, a digital archive. Real-time feeds. Black op briefings. A record of everything Echo denied. Mara pointed to a terminal. You were designated Echo Variant 6 Alpha, experimental empathy suppression. But it didn't work. I laughed, bitter. You're telling me I failed at being a sociopath? No, she said. You succeeded at being human. I stared at the screen, and for the first time in years, I wasn't sure who the enemy was. Chapter 11. The Man in the Reflection. Back at the safe house, I couldn't sleep. Not because of nightmares, those I was used to, but because I looked in the mirror and didn't see myself. Not the husband, not the builder, not even the soldier. I saw a weapon waiting for a mission it didn't remember. I shaved, washed my face, opened an old scar near my collarbone. Inside was a chip. I'd forgotten it was there, until tonight. I scanned it with Mara's burner. It opened a single file. Operation Palisades. No content, just a timestamp, set for 48 hours from now. I didn't know what it meant, but the countdown had already started. And now I was in it, whether I wanted to be or not. Chapter 12, Countdown. The file wasn't large, just a timestamp counting down from 47:59:48 when I opened it. No coordinates, no details, just those 6 bold letters, Operation Palisades, and a timer that didn't care how little I understood. Mara stood in the doorway of the safe house, watching me with a face that was both familiar and unreadable. "They triggered the lock early," she said. "Probably hoping you'd run. If you run, they win." I didn't run. I did what I've always done when the world turns gray. I trained. I cleaned my weapons, memorized city maps, traced every exit path out of Kuwait, not because I planned to use them, but because I knew once that clock hit 0, I wouldn't be leaving through a door. I'd be leaving through fire. Chapter 13, The Istanbul Pivot. 6 hours later, we were in the air. Destination, Istanbul. According to Mara, a ghost server tied to Operation Palisades was pinged there. It was the only lead Echo hadn't yet wiped, and we had less than 2 days to get to it before Echo, or someone worse, torched it. On the flight, Mara slept lightly, one eye always half open. I didn't sleep. I stared at the flashing seatbelt light, remembering Caracas. Not the whole thing. Just flashes. Rain on corrugated metal. A child screaming. My own hands, covered in blood that wasn't mine. And that feeling in my chest, heavy and wet, like guilt trying to disguise itself as duty. I gripped the seat and reminded myself, I wasn't that man anymore. But I wasn't sure that was true. Chapter 14, The Tracker. We landed just after midnight. Fog on the tarmac. Mara arranged transport through an old contact. Somebody who owed her from a job she wouldn't talk about. By the time we reached our safe flat near Taksim Square, I already knew we were being watched. Same van. Same pattern. Someone mirrored us through the city, stopping when we stopped, changing lanes when we did. When I slipped out back with a pressure gauge taped under my jacket, I confirmed it. Thermal scans, passive surveillance gear. And then I saw the tag, a reflective chip affixed to the underside of our cab. We weren't being followed. We were being beamed. I turned to Mara. We have less than 40 hours to find this server, and we're already tagged. She didn't blink. Then let's make them regret it. Chapter 15, Red Rain. The server location was buried beneath a historical archive, a cover site from the Ottoman era, with hidden bunkers repurposed for digital warfare. Getting in required distraction. Mara handled that. She started a false flag protest outside the square. Crowds, fireworks, chants in 4 languages. Meanwhile, I moved through underground access, crossed 3 security thresholds, and reached a hallway no longer on any city schematic. I found the server room. I expected code. What I found instead was a photo, paper, not digital, of 5 faces. Mine, Wraith's, Monroe, Mara, and a 5th, a woman I didn't recognize, but something deep in my gut screamed familiar. On the back, 2 words. The real mission. And then the lights cut out. Chapter 16, Breach. Blackout protocol kicked in. I moved through the dark, counting steps, recalling layouts. Then, gunfire. Distant, sharp, suppressed. I heard boots, not military. Echo. They didn't want to kill me. Not yet. They wanted what I'd just seen. I lit a flare and tossed it behind a fuse box. When they moved toward it, I looped around and neutralized the closest one. Neck snap, clean. The second got a knife in the thigh. I shot the third before he could scream. When I reached the surface, Mara was waiting in a taxi. "Did you get it?" she asked. I showed her the photo. She didn't speak for 5 seconds. Then, "Her name was Ava. She was your sister." The world stopped. "What?" "They didn't just train you," she said. "They erased her to keep you obedient." Chapter 17. Her name was Ava. The name hit harder than any bullet. Ava. My sister. Buried somewhere in the walls of a life I no longer remembered. Mara handed me a file, thin, incomplete, torn at the edges. Ava Reeve, born 2 years after me, recruited into an Echo-adjacent cognitive experiment program. Her file ended in 2012. They said she failed the empathy threshold, Mara whispered. So they shut her down. My head pulsed. I saw flashes again. Not of war, of a birthday cake, blue ribbons, a hug, a voice saying, "I'll always protect you." My voice, my vow. And now, her name was written in a file designed to be forgotten. Where is she now? I asked. Mara just looked down. That's what Palisades is, not a memory, a reset. And we've got 30 hours left before they trigger it citywide. Chapter 18, Fracture. The safe house was cold, windowless, and quieter than it had any right to be. Mara paced like a caged animal, her calm cracked for the first time since Kuwait. I sat against the wall with the file in my lap, Ava's name burning like a matchstick under my skin. "You knew," I said. Not a question, a statement. She didn't deny it. "Not the whole story," she replied. "I saw her name flagged once, but they buried her deeper than anyone." I clenched my fists. "She was a kid." Mara nodded. "And they used her like a code base." My mind reeled. Ava. I remembered her now, faintly. She had a laugh like broken wind chimes and a stare that could shame a wolf. I remembered promising I'd always find her. I'd lied. Chapter 19, The Network. We moved to a new location. Istanbul was no longer safe. Mara called in a favor, a journalist with black market access and no allegiance. He led us through a network of safe tunnels beneath the Bosphorus, each wall covered in rebellion graffiti, old escape maps, and tunnels that once smuggled souls out of dying regimes. "Echo has a full retrieval team here now," Mara told me as we walked. "They're not here to clean anymore. They're here to bury." We reached a comm station. The journalist handed over a drive. "It's a synthetic overlay," he said. "Used for citywide data resets, military grade. Yours is counting down. That's what Palisades is, a system-wide blackout. Anyone in the database, wiped clean." Mara looked at me. "That includes your sister." My blood turned to ice. Chapter 20, Ghost Tracking. We only had one shot at finding Ava, through voiceprint echoes. Old recordings linked to the base neural frequency the Echo program mapped. Using the comm station, Mara patched into dormant archive satellites from the SEAL command network. We got a hit. Alexandria, Egypt, 2 weeks prior. A woman matching Ava's biometric profile used a forged US ID to access a safe deposit vault. The camera caught only a silhouette. But the gait, the rhythm, I knew it. She was alive, or had been. I stared at the grainy footage and felt something twist behind my ribs, a mix of hope and fear. "What was in the vault?" I asked. Mara zoomed in. A small black case. No label, no markings. But I recognized it. I'd carried one just like it on the Caracas op. "It's not just memory they're wiping," I whispered. "It's the record of the mission itself." Chapter 21, The Vault. We boarded a military drone jump flight under false credentials, arriving in Alexandria just before dawn. The air was thick with salt and sand. The vault building was already under surveillance, not by Echo, but by another outfit. Contractors, Eastern European. High-end gear. They weren't here to question anyone. They were here to eliminate witnesses. Mara and I split. She handled Overwatch. I went in as a courier, using a badge from my last civilian life. One of the few perks of being forgotten. I reached the vault room, passed the ID scan, and stepped inside. It was empty, but not untouched. On the wall, someone had carved 2 words with a knife. "He's next." I didn't know who he was, but I knew who sent the message. Ava was warning me. Ava was... Chapter 22, Firestorm. The attack came 6 minutes later. They breached through the east wall, Tactical, methodical, efficient, but they didn't expect resistance. Mara lit them up from above, cutting 2 before they hit the first floor. I moved through smoke, using heat signatures, clearing left. 3 down, 1 wounded. Then I saw him, the handler. Echo insignia on the wrist, badge clipped to his collar. "We don't need to do this," he said. "You're out, Reeve. We're offering you a way back." I raised my pistol. "You burned my file. You buried my sister." His expression didn't change. "She was never supposed to live past Caracas. You were the experiment. She was the control." I pulled the trigger once, then twice, and the hallway went silent. Chapter 23, Burn It All. We torched the site, hard drives, paper trails, cameras. Mara planted an EMP burst that fried everything within 10 blocks. But the real loss wasn't tech, it was time. We were down to 16 hours on the Palisades countdown. Mara stared at me through the smoke. "There's one more site," she said. "The backup system, the core server." "Where?" I asked. She swallowed. "Norway. Under the sea." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I knew what came next. "Submersible drop?" She nodded. "With luck." We both knew luck didn't exist. Not for ghosts. Only preparation. And blood. Chapter 24. The Dive. We reached Norway via a military ghost transport. No manifest, no flight log. The drop point was just off the coast near Tromsø, where the sea went black and deep. Mara guided the submersible from a station beneath an abandoned weather facility. We dropped into the abyss with only sonar pings and silence to keep us company. I kept replaying Ava's name in my mind like a code I couldn't break. What had they done to her? What had I let them do? The sub shuddered as we passed the final depth marker. Ahead, beneath the mountain shelf, was the vault. Palisades core node. The birthplace of a digital extinction event. One they said was meant for enemies. But the targets weren't terrorists or foreign agents. They were us, the ones who remembered too much. Chapter 25. The core. We breached through a thermal exhaust shaft, bypassing the main gate. The interior of the node looked like a server farm mixed with a tomb. Endless blinking lights, refrigeration units, biometric readers on every door. We moved quickly. Mara decrypted access points. I neutralized a patrolling drone with a knife jab to its lens. When we reached the core, the countdown was still running. Under 7 hours. But the real shock wasn't the clock. It was the figure standing beside it. Ava. Her hair was shorter, her build leaner, but her eyes, still that blue-gray steel I'd seen in every buried dream. She didn't flinch when she saw me. "You took your time," she said. "I was beginning to think you forgot how to bleed." Chapter 26. The reunion. I didn't rush her, didn't touch her, just stood there like I was staring at a memory made flesh. "They said you were gone," I said. She smiled faintly. They almost made it true. She turned to the server. "You don't know what Palisades really is, do you?" Mara stepped forward. "A global blackout." Ava nodded. "Of a kind. But not just digital. It's neural. A signal that severs memory by targeting engineered clusters. It wipes identity from the inside." I staggered. "You mean, Echo wasn't just training us. They were building failsafes. If we ever went rogue, they'd erase us," I whispered. Ava looked at me with something like sadness. "They tested it on me first. Caracas was the beta run. You were the real field test." My stomach dropped. "And now?" She stared at the countdown. "Now it ends." Chapter 27. The Final Kill Order. The room shook. Not from us. From above. Echo had found us. A direct feed popped onto one of the monitors. Wraith. Older. Hardened. Eyes like stone. "Jack," he said. "You should have stayed gone." I stepped forward. "You tried to erase my sister." "Because she's the trigger," Wraith snapped. "Don't you get it? Ava was never the control. She was the carrier." I looked at Ava, who didn't deny it. The neurocluster you share is unique, Wraith continued. It broadcasts. If you two reconnect, if you remember together, it triggers the cascade, a chain reaction that collapses every echo file in existence. You're the EMP, she's the detonator. Silence fell. For the first time in years, I understood why they had buried us both. And what happens if the cascade completes? I asked. Ava looked at me. They disappear, all of them. No trace, no memory, just freedom. Chapter 28. The Choice. Mara handed me a trigger device, manual override. I could shut Palisades down, leave the system intact, let Echo stay alive, in the shadows, or I could let it finish. Watch the world forget everything they ever built. I looked at Ava. What happens to us? She smiled. We forget too. All of it. Echo. Caracas. Each other. I held the device in my hand. My thumb hovered over the switch. You sure? I asked her. She nodded. You made me a promise once. You said you'd protect me. Even from myself. I looked at Mara. She just gave the slightest nod. Then I looked at the clock. 2 minutes left, and I made my choice. Chapter 29. Reset. The lights dimmed, then surged, then went dark. A pulse raced outward like a heartbeat from the core. Data dissolved, names vanished, protocols burned. Ava collapsed. I caught her. She looked up at me, blinking through tears. Jack, she whispered. Yeah, I said, holding her close. It's me. Her voice trembled. What did we do? I smiled faintly. We did what they never thought we could. We ended it. And as the facility crumbled around us, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not vengeance, not clarity, not even peace. I felt freedom. The ghosts of Echo were finally gone. Chapter 30. After Echo. We made it to the surface. Barely. A smuggler boat met us outside the shelf, called in by Mara through a dead network that still worked because no one remembered to turn it off. Ava slept the entire ride. Mara watched the horizon. So, she said, what now? I didn't have an answer. I looked at my reflection in the dark sea. Not Jack Reeve, not Echo 6, just a man who lost everything to memory and won it all back by letting go. Now, I said, now we find somewhere quiet. And then, I thought about it, then we stay silent, until the silence needs breaking again. New episodes drop weekly. Subscribe and hit the to follow Jack's journey through betrayal, truth, and total erasure. What would you choose? Freedom with no memory, or a past worth killing for? This is episode 2 of 4. The deeper I go, the more Echo takes from me. But I'm not stopping until they're gone. Or I am.